Chapter 4. Messy Spaghetti. Dan stood by the pilot's table with his pencil and pad. "What do you want to eat?" he asked the men. The pilots told him what they wanted, but they all spoke at once, and Dan did not know what to write down. When he went into the kitchen, he looked at his pad. It was a mess. The chef was not pleased. "Can you remember what they ordered?"
"Well," said Dan, "most of them wanted spaghetti, I think."
Dan picked up 2 plates of spaghetti and meatballs and took them into the restaurant. He stopped in the doorway. Everybody looked unhappy. They were all complaining. One guest said to Mr. Gray, "My glass tastes of polish." "So does mine," said another guest. "It's horrible." "I don't understand it," said Mr. Gray. Then he saw Dan standing in the doorway with his mouth open. "Do you know anything about this?" he said.
You said to polish the glasses," said Dan. "So I got some polish and I sprayed each glass."
Mr. Gray looked angry. "Oh, you silly boy," he said. "Take that spaghetti to the pilots before it gets cold, and hurry." Dan hurried across the restaurant with the plates of spaghetti. "I was only trying to help," he thought. Suddenly, a woman jumped up to complain about her glass. She did not see Dan, and she knocked the plates out of his hands. They flew into the air, turned upside down, and landed in the middle of the pilot's table. Splat! The spaghetti, the meatballs, and the tomato sauce went everywhere. What a mess! All the pilots jumped up. They had sauce and spaghetti all over their uniforms. The noise in the restaurant was so loud, Dad heard it in his office. He came to see what was happening. He saw Dan in a waiter's uniform. Then he saw the spilled spaghetti. The sauce was dripping from the table onto the carpet. "Oh dear," thought Dad. "What has Dan done now?" Jane and Mr. Gray cleared up the mess. Dad told the pilots he was sorry, but they were very nice and were not angry with Dan. Some of them thought it was funny, and they were very pleased when Dad said they could have a free meal.
"I was only trying to help," said Dan.
"I know you were," said Dad, "but something always goes wrong when you try to help, Dan."
"Can I do some washing up now?" asked Dan.
Dad was going to say no when he remembered that the dishwasher was broken. "OK, Dan," he said. "That will be a big help."
"Oh, good," said Dan. "And I'll be very careful this time."